President Joe Biden made sweeping proposals in his address before a joint session of Congress last night. Among them, a pledge to tackle a problem felt acutely here in Chicago and Illinois: access to clean, lead-free drinking water.
And today, up to 10 million homes in America and more than 400,000 schools and child care centers have pipes with lead in them, including drinking water. A clear and present danger to our children's health. American Jobs Plan creates jobs replacing 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines, so every American can drink clean water.
And Illinois reportedly has more lead service pipes than any other state in the nation. Chicago, more than any U.S. city. Illinois U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth has proposed $35 billion to update water infrastructure and improve drinking water across the country. And joining us to discuss this effort and much more is Senator Tammy Duckworth. She is chair of the Senate Environment and Public Works Subcommittee on Fisheries, Water, and Wildlife. Senator Duckworth, welcome back to Chicago tonight. As we understand, your bill, the bill you sponsored, is passing out of the Senate today, that $35 billion water infrastructure bill. So what Chicagoans want to know is, will there be enough federal funds to cover 100% of lead service line replacement here in the city?
Well, I don't know that it's all going to be federal, but combination between federal, state, and city, there should be enough to replace the 100% of the lead service line in the city, yes. We have 23% of the total lead service lines across the nation is in Illinois, and most of it is in Chicago. And the goal of this legislation is to provide as much federal funding as possible. There'll be some local match, but the goal is to replace 100% of the lead service pipelines in the country.
And we should let our viewers know we're talking as this bill is being voted on right now in the Senate, expected to pass with bipartisan support, as I understand?
Yes, very much so. It came out of committee unanimously. When was the last time you heard of that in politics these days? But we got 100% of the Republicans on the committee to vote for it. They supported it. It's been very bipartisan. We were very careful when we were writing this bill to include a lot of concerns from rural communities, agricultural concerns. We even included verbiage to cover tribal water treatment facilities. And so this is really going to help Americans all across our great nation.
So a moment of bipartisan unity here. The president, as you know, last night unveiled sweeping proposals, the water part of it, but also the $1.8 billion American Families proposal that would, among other things, provide community college, universal preschool, child care, among other things, paid in part by higher taxes on wealthy earners and corporations. Could that tax part of it derail bipartisan hopes on that plan?
Well, that, you have to ask the Republicans that one. I hope that they will see a way to support the legislation. I think that the human infrastructure needs as much investment in this country as our regular, transportation infrastructure and water infrastructure. We have to have infrastructure to support families and the human capital of this country. That means that kids should be able to have universal pre-K. And we know that how well a child does in the 4th grade with reading and math starts with whether or not they attend pre-K, and whether or not someone graduates high school and goes on to college is predicted by how well they do in the 4th grade. So it all comes right back to pre-K and child care and helping families be able to work outside the home and be productive outside of the home, but also take care of their families as well. That's human family infrastructure, and we need to make those investments as well as we do to fix up our roads and our bridges and our airports.
And do you believe that higher taxes on wealthy earners and corporations, as the president said, paying their fair share, quote unquote, should pay for this as opposed to not paying for it and taking out more debt?
Well, I think that corporations and wealthy individuals have gotten a pretty good ride the last 4 years. Don't forget that the Republican tax cuts gave back trillions of dollars to large corporations, who in turn went on a buying spree. They bought back stocks. They didn't put that money back into the economy. They took that money and they bought back stocks. Wealthy individuals, people who make well more than $400,000 a year, many of them in the above $40 million a year, became wealthier during the pandemic in 2020, the very wealthiest of Americans, those who, have the net worth of millions, made even more money in that time period, while Americans, hardworking Americans and working families were being laid off from work, were falling behind on their rent, on their mortgages. So I say it's time. It's time that corporations like General Electric, which by the way hasn't paid income taxes, maybe they should pay a little bit in order to educate the workforce that will one day work in GE factories.
And it seems like that notion is starting to become a bipartisan notion as well. Senator, there are a lot of priorities for Democrats. Infrastructure, that $1.9 trillion proposal, voting rights, immigration, climate legislation. Do any of these things have a chance at getting done without modifying or getting rid of the filibuster? I know you've said you're for perhaps the talking filibuster.
Right. I mean, look, I would rather not have to modify the filibuster. But at the end of the day, if you told me that my choice was between voting to protect people's voting rights or protecting the filibuster to protect the rights of 100 senators to obstruct one another, I'm going to vote on behalf of the voters. I mean, I spent 23 years in uniform defending our Constitution and our democracy. Nowhere in our Constitution is the right to the filibuster enshrined. In our Constitution, the right to vote is enshrined. So I'm always going to vote to support the rights of people's civil liberties and their ability to vote. I hope there can be bipartisanship. I was disappointed with the American Rescue Plan that not a single Republican voted for that. And that bill was desperately needed, by working families. I mean, it put money in people's pockets so that they could go ahead and pay their electricity bill and their gas bill and their back rent and their back mortgage. And it paid for vaccinations and cleaning of our schools so kids go back to schools. It really, astonished me that not a single Republican senator voted for that when it was so desperately needed by the country.
And it seems pretty clear to modify the filibuster, to do away with it. It all kind of hinges on Senator Joe Manchin, the moderate Democrat from West Virginia, who has said he is not in favor of at least getting rid of the filibuster. I'm curious, have you had any conversations with him on this subject, and do you think he would modify his position on it?
Well, if you read the op-ed that he wrote not too long ago, I think he laid out his thinking, and I'll just let him, people read that. No, he's made it clear. He said, listen, the ball is in your court, Republicans. If you're going to obstruct, then don't be surprised that this idea of filibuster reform is coming up. And he's saying that he does not support right now ending the filibuster, but that's dependent on Republicans actually not being the party of no, the party of obstruction, the party of not getting anything done. And he has said that he will consider a talking filibuster. I won't put words in his mouth, but I think that is a good intermediate step. Most people, when they think of a filibuster, they think of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and Jimmy Stewart standing up to speak. That's not what the filibuster is today in practice. The filibuster today, any senator can say, all right, I'm going to filibuster this, and then they can go to Cancun on vacation if they want to. They don't have to be on the floor speaking, until they run out of, energy to do so. So a talking filibuster might be a good intermediate step.
I wonder what you're referring to with that Cancun vacation. Senator Duckworth, you recently called out the Biden administration for a lack of Asian American Pacific Islander representation in his cabinet, to which the administration responded pretty quickly. Are you satisfied that they've solved that problem? Why is that so important to you?
Well, the problem is not completely solved, but I am very pleased that they worked with me and they responded literally within hours of me indicating that I would not vote for any more nominees. And the reason I did that was because I had voted for every nominee up until that point, even before they were sworn into office. And since being sworn in, I had been working with them, moving forward and forwarding names of AAPIs who are well qualified and sometimes more qualified than the person who was eventually nominated. I had voted for every white person, every woman, every man, every person identifying LGBTQ, every Latino, every Black American that had come before the Senate from the Biden administration. I voted yes on every single one of them. And at this point in time, to not have a single AAPI person nominated to a cabinet position, I felt was really a disservice to the American people. President Biden promised a cabinet that would look like the American people, and right now it does not look like the American people because there's not a single AAPI in a cabinet secretary position.
So you want more movement on that, although it did lead to the appointment of your former general counsel, Erica Mortsugu, as a deputy assistant on AAPI issues. Senator, I want to get to the issue of gun violence, obviously very important here in Chicago, experiencing a terrible year for homicides. The president brought up his support for banning assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, closing the gun show loophole. Is there any legislation on that front that has any chance at all of bipartisan support?
Well, that depends on where the Republicans are. I mean, so much of this legislation is actually supported by the American people. Background checks, for example, universal background checks is supported by 95% of Americans support closing the gun show loophole. Most people don't realize this, but if you are a gun store owner today, you can choose to go out of business, say you want to retire. And you can turn your entire gun store inventory to personal use weapons. And then a year later, you could say, you know what? I don't want to hang on to these guns anymore. You can turn around and sell those thousands of weapons at gun shows and without doing any background checks or selling them, person to person. And so we need to close that loophole. And closing that loophole is very much supported by the American people. I have a bill that would have a universal FOID card like we have in Chicago to have your firearm owner's ID card. I have one of those myself. I don't own a firearm, but I have one of those because I like to target practice. There a lot of this legislation is very bipartisan. The question is, will Republican senators vote for it, or would they just continue to be beholden to the NRA?
So like a FOID card applied to the whole nation at large. Senator Duckworth, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.